This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast that takes a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week marks the 300th episode of the Bobcast. To mark this occasion, we welcome someone to the show who embodies what it means to be a Bobcat, Dean James Reese, who takes us down memory lane of his time working Bates basketball games and much more. Plus, meet Watson Fellow and women's track and field senior captain Elizabeth Lacroix. All that and more coming up on the 300th episode of the Bates Bobcast. The softball team opened NESCAC play on Saturday with a doubleheader against Middlebury. The Bobcats took Game 1 3-0 before falling 4-3 in Game 2 to the Panthers. The 3-0 victory in Game 1 was sparked by first-year Delaney Rankin, who struck out 6 batters in a complete game shutout. Rankin also helped her own cause at the plate, blasting a solo home run to dead center field. And Delaney Rankin is our female Bobcat of the week.
My mom played softball in Massachusetts growing up. She also played baseball, and it was her favorite sport. I also had 2 older siblings who both played softball and baseball, so I was just kind of born into it, and then I really just grew to love it from my mom.
So what made Bates the place for you when you were looking at schools?
It was my first choice, and I knew it was a really good school, and since I was coming to school for school, but also to be able to play softball, I was really looking to have a good school and a good program. And then also when I met all the girls on the team, it just seemed like a really good fit for me. So
great. So tell us a little bit about the game there on Saturday. You threw a complete game shutout against Middlebury, a team from your home state. So take us through kind of what was working for you out there in the circle.
So I could just feel my teammates behind me. It was kind of a hard day for me because my childhood best friend had died a year ago that day. And so I don't know if people noticed, but we were wearing pink. My whole team was behind me on that and really supported me through that. So I owe it all to my teammates. But especially my catcher was really supporting me through that. And then everyone had really good plays. And I just really wanted to win.
Wow. So, yeah, that teammate support, tell us a little bit more about that, I guess. They knew about that even though this happened like a year ago?
Yes, actually, she went to Trinity College, and Bates was playing Trinity the weekend that she passed away. So they had already known about it, but I told them a little bit more about it. So they were really supporting me through that, yeah. And
you mentioned the catcher, obviously senior Amanda Taylor. What's it like working with her?
So we call our own pitches. Coach doesn't call our pitches. She lets us call the game. So it's really about, you have to get that bond, and it's kind of, obviously it's hard because she's a senior and I'm a first year, so it's our first time working together. But I think we were really coming into it, and she really supports me and lets me shake her off, but also knows what's working that day. So
great. And in terms of your pitch mix, what do you bring out there?
I really like curveballs. I throw a lot of curveballs and located fastballs.
Excellent. And then can't forget about your first collegiate home run to dead center field. What did you see on that pitch?
I knew it was 2-0, and Coach had told me, can you get a base hit up the middle? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try. So I was just thinking, I'm going to hit up the middle. I knew she was coming right for me with the 2-0 pitch, so I was ready.
And did you hit a lot of home runs in high school?
I had quite a few.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So not a new experience hitting a home run, but what was it like to have all your teammates,
that was crazy. I really, I just really felt their support in that moment when they were all very excited for me, and feeling my joy, which is one of our big things this year that Coach wants us to work on, is feeling our teammates' joy. And I can really feel joy for them when they're doing good, and then them running out to me was that was a big moment for me.
Great. And then obviously a deep pitching staff, a lot of pitchers this year, a lot of first years also. So what's that group like?
I really love to work with our pitching staff, and it's really nice knowing that when you're in the game, there's always someone that can come pick you up in the game, a reliever. So, but yeah, I've also relieved for them, and they're gonna relieve for me, and I think it's just great to know that we can have each other's back.
You mentioned Coach Kat McKay, head coach, her first year at Bates as a head coach. She was assistant a little bit last year here, but tell us a little bit about her and what you've learned from her so far, being a rookie.
I love Coach McKay. I think she's a great coach. She really lets us, figure it out during the game, but she's always there to support us. And one of my favorite things about her is that she lets us have a good time as well. Like during practice, I'll be like her peanut gallery when she's hitting to the infielders, and I like to make her laugh. We have a lot of fun at practice, so I think that helps us a lot, keep the game light, but also working to get better.
Great. We mentioned, how your family was really into softball and baseball. Pitching specifically, though, have you always been a pitcher?
No, I didn't start pitching until I was like 13 years old.
Okay.
I think my mom always wanted me to be a pitcher, but I just did not want to be a pitcher, until one time I tried it out and I was like, oh, okay, I could be good at this. So then I wanted to work harder at it, and then she was like, okay. So once she kind of like laid off me being a pitcher, then I wanted to be a pitcher.
Excellent. And so what have you been working on this year? I mean, this being your first year in college, adjusting to the college level compared to high school.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And I would say that even like NESCAC play is different than like our games in Florida. It was definitely a different feel. I was a little bit more nervous. There was a little bit more of this matters like a little more. But I've been just working on like making my spins tighter and being able to locate the ball more, and I work with Coach McKay on that a lot. So
you finally, I hope, will have a home game this Friday, Bowdoin, for a doubleheader actually. So Bates Bowdoin rivalry, being from Vermont, does it mean a lot to you? Have you learned a lot about it?
I don't know a lot about it, but I know that I know it's a big rivalry. So I'm hoping that we can sweep them. It'd be great if we could sweep them. I know that. Our field has been, our defense specifically, especially against Middlebury, was top notch. Like we had 2 people thrown out from the outfield. Sarah Cook absolutely gunned those girls down, and then all of the outfield going back to the fence for balls that look like they're going to be doubles, triples. That's crazy. And then our infield is just completely locked in. So hopefully we can do that again on Friday.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, how excited are you to be, playing in front of the home fans here finally, right?
I'm very excited. It was very good that we could go to Colby and play, but it was disappointing, obviously, not to be able to play at our home field.
So hopefully we'll get the field ready for Friday, doubleheader against Bowdoin. Delaney, just any other thoughts you want to share on, the first 2 NESCAC games of the season?
I'm pretty happy with how we played, and hopefully we'll be able to get some wins against Bowdoin.
All right, Delaney Rankin, our female Bobcat of the week, complete game shutout against Middlebury, plus her first collegiate home run. Thanks so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
The men's track and field team won the Bates quad meet on Saturday, starting the outdoor season on the right foot. Bates took first in 11 events, and senior captain Colby Stakun-Pickering was involved in 3 of those victories, winning the 100-meter dash, the 200-meter dash, and helping Bates win the 4x100 relay. The 4x100 team's time of 42.75 seconds is the 9th fastest time in Bates history, and Colby Stakun-Pickering is our male Bobcat of the week. Well, Colby, the first outdoor track meet of the year was certainly everything you could hope for in Maine, right? Yes, interesting weather. Take us through the conditions you guys were going through there on Saturday.
It was very interesting, and they weren't even consistent over the course of the day. So in the very beginning, around noon, 11 a.m. and noon was when the first event started going off, and it was still like maybe high 30s, low 40s, and rainy. Enough rain where like you're soaked, your clothes are soaked, and it's kind of miserable to be out there. And then over the course of the day, it started to heat up. I think by the end of it, around like 4 or 5 p.m., it was like 50 degrees, and the rain was on and off at that point. So I was lucky to have my 100-meter and 200-meter not in the rain, but the 4x1 was still in the rain, which kind of stunk, but it was fun.
Well, in the 4x1 and your individual events, you got the victory in all 3 of those. The 4x1, of course, was the one talking to all the sprinters everyone was excited about. I know Truman Williams joined the 3 we talked about in the winter, so take us through that group and the victory there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because we're always, in practice, subtly competing against one another, and in all of our events, subtly competing against one another. But it's something special when you get to bring everyone together and we're all kind of working together for a common thing. And so for us this year, we've been trying to kind of define an overarching goal of what we want. And kind of like the first thing on that list would be to get down to 42 flat, or that school record, and then kind of continue to chip away at the time from there. And so just getting practice each day, we'll do like some handoff. Sometimes coach will come up to us. We'll be lifting in the weight room. And he's like, oh, all right, here's a baton. You're going to do some practice. And we'll take us out into the hallway. We'll do that. That day in particular, it was interesting because since it was so rainy and cold, we warmed up inside, did some practice handoffs inside, and then like 5-10 minutes before our race went outside, and we were just out there just to get there, put our tape down. So when we do the exchanges, we put tape on the track just so we know like roughly when to start running relative to when the incoming runner is. So got out there, put the tape down, ran, and then jackets right back on, went back inside.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned the school record. Obviously, the 4x1, the school record from you guys are in the top 10, but the school record's not that far away, right? In terms of what you can get to. I mean, I assume in better conditions, you might have a very good chance, right?
Yeah. So it is an interesting question and kind of one that there's a little bit of guessing with of how your 100-meter PRs can turn into a 4x1, because sometimes you might expect the fastest 4 guys on the team to give you the best 4x1, but there's also a huge aspect of the chemistry and how smooth those handoffs are. So sometimes you might have an individual who might not have the fastest 100-meter time, but they might just have like such supreme chemistry with someone that they're never dropping a handoff and they're getting the baton across like as fast as possible. So that's something that we're working on, that chemistry aspect. I think we all have the speed to really achieve something great. And so, I mean, it's Derek's first outdoor season ever, which is something really interesting and fun to watch. So getting him kind of used to even just the elements, like it's kind of weird to say, but he was talking to me the other day about just how it's different running inside versus outside. And you kind of take that, like you never really think about that. And like, oh, now there's a cross breeze, so my start might be a little bit different because there's something like pushing on me. I think just kind of continuing to get the practice in and kind of smooth those things out, and then it's a fairly long outdoor season, I guess. Like the original originally on our schedule we have like 4 meets that everyone participates in, but then beyond that there's just so many different invitationals, and like you add extra meets. So for example, NESCACs is one that we have outdoor but not indoor, right? As well as Open New England's, which is all 3 divisions at a New England meet. So we have that, which we didn't have indoor. So we'll be able to continue to run further and further into the spring/summer and hopefully get some good conditions.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned, it wasn't raining during your individual events, but were your clothes already soaked from being out there earlier?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So I don't know who did it, but I'm very thankful for them. They set up a big baits tent right by the 100-meter start. Okay. So I would walk outside, walk to the track, and then go right underneath that tent. And then I could take off my stuff and leave all my like shoes and stuff there for the 10 minutes that I'm competing, and then come back and those wouldn't be too soaked. The thing that was a little bit annoying, but I can't really complain too much about it because it's pretty subtle, was my shoes getting wet. Okay. Yeah. And so, you're running in your shoes and the track is kind of wet. It's actually pretty funny. Before the races, there's these like big squeegee kind of things that people will come out and try to like dry the track off. It looks so silly because it looks like someone's just like sweeping the track. But it does definitely help. But your shoes will get a little bit wet, and so you have to try to dry them out. Sometimes you could argue that it changes your performance, but I think it's just kind of like personal comfortability. Yeah. Like you don't want wet socks or wet shoes. So
I think one of my favorite things to see from the photos from the meet were the steeplechasers.
Oh, I love.
Did you get to watch those races?
I did a little bit. Yeah. And that's such a fun race to watch, and I think it seems like it's a fun race to participate in. Yeah. Maybe the last couple laps aren't super fun because you are racing a distance race, but it seems like people have a lot of fun, and like everyone's friends are there supporting them too, because it's more of a spectacle, I feel like, than like a super, cutthroat race. And so everyone's friends will be out there with their cameras filming everything. Sometimes someone will take a tumble, but they'll be in good spirits and come out of it like waving their hands and stuff. So it's a very, very fun one to watch.
I was just thinking like, having the water pit and it's already pouring rain. That must be quite the interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of overflowing a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But what's fun about the water pit too is once the weather gets hotter and it's like 70, 80 degrees, after practice, you can just go sit in it. It's kind of like not quite a hot tub, but it's like this little tub that you can just relax in. So I've done that a few times, and that's cool.
There you go. And the men obviously got first place there at the quad meet, 100 points, won 11 different events. So in terms of the team as a whole, being one of the captains, what's it like to see such a strong start?
Yeah, it's really good to see a strong start, and we've had our sights set on performing pretty well at NESCACs for a while. Last year, we had the unfortunate circumstance where some of our athletes were taken out due to COVID. And so I think this year, just like really bouncing back and coming back with as much energy and, excitement to try to beat those other teams. I mean, we've got a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, and we were enemies with some of the teams. Like obviously we want to beat Bowdoin, we want to beat Tufts and stuff. So they might think that we're not that great, but we'll come back and we'll really show them what the real Bates team is. I think this year we're really setting ourselves up to do well.
Great, and you had senior day that morning, so what was it like to getting all the seniors together for that?
It was fun. I didn't actually realize how many seniors were on the team because you don't really get them all in one spot, like in one big line together very often. So it was cool to have. What we did was on the indoor track, we kind of made a line and coach went down the line saying our name and our major. And we had the rest of the team and our like parents and other spectators sitting on the bleachers. And it was really cool to be able to look out and see kind of the younger crowd and the team that you're leading and that you're part of. And then all of your parents are there, which kind of makes it a fun thing too, just because they're here to watch you and support you. And then just kind of going down the list and thinking about, oh, wow, I've been on the team with them for 3-4 years. They're working on this. They're really passionate about this. Like that's their major. And just kind of, I don't know, very sentimental in some sense. Or it was cool and fun to be a part of.
Excellent. You guys are going to New York, right? RPI this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. We're going to Troy, New York. And so that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you ask. Some people really like to travel, and I think it's warmer over there. This past weekend, I kept getting reminded that it was like 70 or 80 degrees there, and everyone's like, man, we should have gone this week. But, it's also a 5-hour drive probably by bus, which I think thankfully we're heading there on Friday for the Saturday meet, which means we won't have to get up at 4 a.m. and drive. But some people like travel, some people don't. I think it really depends, but I just like going to the meets.
Sure. And I assume you're riding the 4x1 probably every week, basically? Is that...
Yeah, it kind of depends a little bit on the conditions.
Okay.
I think what our strategy will be to enter us in it and then kind of come that day decide whether the conditions are good such that we could hopefully run a fast 4x1, or if people are entered into individual events, kind of figuring out, would this be too much stress on their body to run a 4x1, or like, is this an opportunity where we can test out some different like handoff or exchanges, and kind of see how different chemistry works on the team. So I think for these next few meets, it might be a good kind of test environment as we lead up to some of the bigger meets. But once we get to the bigger meets, it'll definitely be, time to perform.
Great. Well, and, being a captain, I'm curious about any of your teammates who you noticed who really stuck out, I guess, on Saturday in terms of performances, younger guys perhaps.
Yeah. I would say, I think one big shout out would be to Matt Hamilton. He had high jumped about 6'3". I forget exactly what like the meter-centimeter thing conversion is, but that was really cool. And I think it was something that went a little bit under the radar because the jumps were still inside.
Right.
The high jump and the pole vault were still inside. So a lot of athletes and spectators were outside. They were still, doing their own thing, working really hard on the indoor track. So I think that'd be my biggest shout out.
Yeah, I got the victory there in the high jump.
Yeah. Also, just a very impressive mark. I mean, if you look at the standing of that in New England right now, I think it's like third or so, which is very good.
Excellent. Awesome. So, I guess any other thoughts you wanted to share on the upcoming outdoor season with one meet under your belt already we haven't got to talk about? Overall,
just gaining more experience and competing more outdoor will be good for everyone. I think we've got a good team set up right now and just continuing to settle in and get better every week by working out and doing what we can. I'm looking forward to the way it goes.
Awesome. Colby Stakun-Pickering, winner in the 100 meters, the 200 meters, and part of the winning 4x100 relay at the Bates Quad Meet. Bobcat men's team victorious there on Saturday. Our male Bobcat of the week. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited.
On Saturday, women's track and field senior captain Elizabeth Lacroix qualified for the NESCAC Championships with her time of 19 minutes 43.22 seconds in the 5K. But that's not the biggest news involving Lacroix. Not even close. She is one of 2 Bates students to earn a prestigious Watson Fellowship. The Watson Fellowship is a 1-year grant for purposeful, independent exploration outside the United States, awarded to graduating seniors nominated by one of 41 partner institutions. Lacroix will be traveling to 6 countries over the next year to pursue her research. This Thursday is National Student Athlete Day, and Lacroix truly embodies what it means to be a student athlete. Well, Elizabeth, first of all, before we talk about the Watson, tell me a little bit about, when you were looking at colleges back when you were in high school, what made Bates the place for you?
When I started touring colleges, I really wanted the opportunity to, at the time, I wanted to be a doctor and I was pre-med, but I wanted to be an English major. And so I wanted the opportunity of being an English major, but still getting to take all the pre-med requirements. And my trajectory kind of changed, but I knew like the liberal arts education is what I wanted. And Bates was one of the schools that I toured, and it was actually I think it was definitely my best tour too. The tour guide was really great, and everyone was really friendly. But especially when I met with the team, I went to, I think, an invitational or something at Bowdoin, and talking to the teammates, I could really feel that I could be a part of the team, and like the social aspect of it. And it seemed like a really good environment where people were involved with a lot of different things outside of running, which I really value. And that's kind of how I decided that Bates was my top choice. And it was really exciting when I got in. So.
And now fast forward senior year, you're a senior captain for both cross country and now track and field. What's that experience been like being one of the captains?
Really great. I mean, my teammates make the job so easy. And it's really fun because, especially if I think back to the captains who I looked up to when I was a freshman, I really wanted to carry, their legacy. And they always really instilled this idea of inclusivity on the team, and that's something that I really wanted to bring forward. And that's been like mostly my focus. And especially, I feel like we are a big team now, of like 30 women on the distance side and even around 60 for track. I really wanted everyone to feel like they could contribute to the team, even if you're not like a scoring member of the team, because I definitely have not been a scoring member of the team. And I just think there's so much more value that you can bring just besides, scoring a point or so. So that's kind of why those are kind of the things that I brought to being a captain this year.
And you qualified personally for the NESCAC Championships in the 5K, right? This past weekend?
Yeah, I did.
So take us through that race.
Actually, it was my first time with a pacer. One of my teammates, Chrissy, who ended up winning the 1500. She paced me in the 5K, and I've never had a pacer before, and it was so nice to just shut my brain off. And the first few laps, we were, I think, hitting the exact paces that my coach wanted us to. And then one lap we were a little bit fast, but I actually felt good. And Chrissy kind of looked behind to see if I was still there, even though we were going a bit faster, and I was, and I just went with it, and I ended up feeling great. And I kind of had a tough indoor season, so it was really nice to feel good again, back to myself for my last season ever of competitive running. So
excellent. And then let's talk about the Watson Fellowship. This is a very prestigious honor. How did you apply for it? What was the process like?
Yeah, so maybe last February, so over a year ago, I decided that I wanted to apply for the Watson Fellowship. I had actually learned about it my freshman year and was really interested by it, just because it seemed like such a wonderful opportunity. And over the course of my 4 years, I've kind of realized the kind of research that I want to do when I graduate. But the issue with that is that no one really kind of does that research, just because it's women's health related, and women's health research is vastly underfunded. And the Watson would allow me to get my foot in the door of that field. So I started that application process. Robert Strong, who's a professor in the English department and the director of national fellowships here at Bates, really helped me throughout the entire process. I would send him drafts of my personal statements and project statements over the summer. And then in the fall is the Bates deadline. So with that, they basically... you submit your application early, but to Bates, and then the Bates committee reviews them, and then they choose, I applicants who they would like to interview, and then there's an interview round, and then they choose 4 from the college that they want to nominate to submit applications to the actual fellowship. And then there's another round of interviews, and then we found out in March. So, yeah, it was definitely a long process.
And what was your reaction when you found out you got it?
It was absolutely disbelief. I never in a million years thought I would get something like this. I personally felt like I learned so much just from the application process about what I wanted to do and the research I wanted to do. So no matter what, I felt like I gained something from the application itself. So I felt accomplished in that way. And I really was not expecting to get it. And I was sitting in my stat therms chemistry class, and I just like lost complete focus. And it was my teammate who actually texted me because she had been refreshing the website because they don't tell you, they don't email you until much later. So she was refreshing the website, and then I got a text from her, and she's like, "You got the Watson," and it was just a really crazy moment.
Excellent.
For sure.
Yeah, well, we have a whole article, of course, up on the website about this. There's 2 Bobcats who are in Watson's, of course, Elizabeth being one of them. Elizabeth, I'm just curious about so many different countries you're going to and how you all planning your travels right now.
Yeah, so part of the application process was actually planning.
Okay,
yeah, so I've done a lot of that already.
Yeah.
But then there's like the logistics part of making sure that I will have access to a phone, and like I need to get international health insurance, that kind of thing. So I need to do that. But I've already done like reaching out to my contacts in different countries. So the people that I'm meeting know that I'm coming and when I'm coming. Yeah. And I plan on like mostly the short term working on like the logistics part and aspect of my project. But I really did already plan like this is who I'm going to meet. Like this is where I'm going. This is kind of what my life is going to be like while I'm in the country, which I'm glad I already did because this is a really busy time of the year with finals and everything. So.
Yeah. How long in each country and which countries are you going to?
Yeah, so I will be in Sweden. I start in Sweden for 2 months. And then I go to Denmark also for 2 months. And then the Netherlands for 1 month. Ecuador for 2 months. And Beijing, China for 2 months. And then India for 3 months. But again, those are all subject to change. That's just what I plan now, based on like what's current events going on in the world. That kind of thing could affect it. Also, if I, discover something that I didn't plan on finding, which I'm sure that's going to happen, that might change where I go as well. So the whole part of the process is really being open to change, and I think I have to be kind of prepared for that as well.
What excites you the most about this opportunity?
I'm really excited about talking to all these people around the world and all these different places about something that we're both really passionate about. Just kind of a quick little background on my project. So my project is called The Global Story of Menstrual Pain. So I will be collecting the stories of researchers, medical practitioners, and patients who all deal with this kind of pain. And I'm really, because so few people do this research, it's really hard to find people who do. But the people who do this research are really excited about talking to someone who's also interested. And so I'm really, really looking forward to talking with these people and getting to hear their story and how they became involved in the research. That's what I'm most excited for.
How do you kind of find them? You said, it's kind of rare. How do you kind of find them, the people you want to talk to, I suppose, right?
Yeah. So I mean, simple Google searching first. And then once I found like one researcher, I tended to find others because it is so small. They're all connected to one another. And the thing about the research world is everyone tries to, for the most part, tries to share information with one another. So some of the labs are connected to each other. And then from the labs, they're also connected to actual medical practitioners. Some of the researchers are medical practitioners. And of course, medical practitioners are also connected to the patients. For countries where it's not in like the typical research setting, like in Ecuador, I'll be going to an integrative medicine health center. I found this news article that someone wrote about this place years ago. And it turns out it's still there. So that's actually how I found out about this integrative medicine hospital. So all different ways, but that's mostly because everything is so interconnected. That made it a little bit easier.
Excellent. Then you mentioned, coming into college, thinking about being a doctor, perhaps. What are your thoughts now in terms of like a career path after this whole Watson adventure?
Yeah. So I realized that because I wanted to make these larger impacts on the way we treat menstrual pain, I realized that a career in research would probably be more helpful for that. Also, I for the past 2 years, I've been doing research here at Bates, and I've kind of really come to love that. I love organic chemistry, and I really hope that my life in the future includes organic chemistry research. So after my Watson year, I will be applying for PhD programs this year, and hopefully I'll get in for chemistry. And one day I hope to open up my own lab doing this kind of research.
Excellent. Yeah, well, and then I guess the question here, going back to athletics a little bit, is how have you been able to balance all of this with being in season, all three fall, winter, and spring, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think having the same routine for the past 4 years has been really helpful for time management. I think if I didn't have those 2 hours a day that were designated to not thinking about school, I wouldn't actually be as successful. And I think a lot of my teammates would agree. I would say that pretty much everyone on the women's track and field team are involved in more than just track and cross country. Everyone has something else that they do on campus that has allowed them to kind of open up their skill set and their circle. And just like, I feel like we all kind of create this environment that really allows for that to happen and support one another in that. So that's kind of how I've been able to balance, is just because of this support system that I have and this built-in 2 hours of my day every day where I have a break from running.
Excellent. Did you present the Mount David Summit?
I did, yes.
Okay, tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was really fun, mostly because all of my teammates came, which is really exciting. But it was really great to get to share the research I've been doing. I've been doing the same research for the past 2 years, which has been really cool. And I've been able to really focus on this project, which is one of the reasons why I now want to get a PhD. And yeah, it was really great to have some sort of conclusion of the work that I've been doing and get to share it with people in my life that are important to me.
And doing all this while an English major?
Yeah.
So that's like totally different. So what's kind
Yeah.
of like that dynamic, I guess, right?
Yeah. I feel like I did my English thesis last semester, and my thesis advisor, Professor Lillian Nader, she was really well aware of the kind of balance that I had to do. I was taking 2 harder chem classes at the same time and doing my chemistry thesis as well. I just feel like here at Bates, people are really open to double majors, and think it's really important that students have this experience where they're allowed to do two completely different disciplines. I'm definitely one of many here at Bates who do that. And honestly, I think it's helpful because in my time here during the semester, I take having a wider range of classes is actually probably better because I'm not doing all chemistry. I'm not doing all English. I get to use different areas of my brain, and it's probably actually less taxing, I think, than if I were to do like completely the same thing for an entire semester.
Excellent. Well, any other thoughts you wanted to share on either the Watson Fellowship or perhaps, last week's track meet in the pouring rain there at Russell Street?
Yeah, well, hopefully we get some better weather soon. Always the first outdoor track meet of the year, there's always snow on the ground or it's the weather is horrible. But that just means it's going to get better. But no, that's it. Thank you so much for having me on the Bobcast.
Associate Dean for International Student Programs, James Reese, has worked at Bates since 1977. During the winter, he is a fixture at Alumni Gym at the scorer's table. Somehow, over the course of 300 episodes, we have never had him on the Bobcast. Until now. So you graduated from Middlebury.
Yes, I did.
You played basketball at Middlebury. And then right after you graduated, you came to Bates. How did that opportunity open for you?
Great. And I'll initially say that when I was at Middlebury and playing basketball, our favorite place to play was Bates College. So more on that later. So as a senior, I was contemplating, my future. I was interested in college administration. I had applied for a couple of admissions jobs at a few other schools. And I had a friend, actually, who was working at Bates, and she had graduated 2 years earlier than me. So she calls me one morning in April and says, hey, I'm going to be leaving Bates from my 2-year position, and I'm going off to graduate school. You always ask me so many questions about my job. I thought you might be interested to apply, James. And I said, yes, I am. So I was thinking to myself, I don't remember asking her so many questions, but then I thought about it, and I said, I think I was the only one that was asking her questions about what she did at Bates. And so wonderfully, I applied, and graduation came and went. I was home, got a call from Dean of Students here at the time, asking me to come up and interview in June. And I, was very excited, came up, interviewed, and, was fortunate enough to get the position.
Excellent. And you mentioned earlier that Bates was one of your favorite places to play. Why was that?
Well, I made the team at Middlebury my first year. And the teammates said immediately, the best place to play in the league is Bates. And I said, oh, yeah, why is that? They said they got this little small gym, but the crowd comes out in bigger numbers than in all the other schools. Sometimes they have a band, there's music going, people up in the balcony in those days. And it's an incredible environment, and you're going to love it. So I said, oh, great, when are we going? And they said, we're going next year. Because in NESCAC, you play each team once, and so we played Bates at home that year. They beat us. And then in my sophomore year, we came to Bates. And actually what they said was completely true. I can elaborate on that if you want.
Sure.
All right. Well, I walked into the gym. And I'm bragging here. They said, and I believe this, Larry Bird could walk into a gym and he could look at a hoop to see if they were the right height in the whole bit. So I walked into the gym and I thought two things. It was really small. So I said to my teammates, this place? And they said, oh. They said, don't worry, just wait until tonight. And so I also looked at the hoop underneath the balcony, and that's been repaired. It was like an inch off, I would say, But, well, the hours went by, and finally we were prepared to have the game. And so we run out onto the floor for the game. And, yes, there was a big crowd already at the game. That never happened at the other NESCAT schools. I'll name them: Bowdoin, Wesleyan, Amherst, No crowds, even at my own school. We had more than usual at other places, but, it was enhanced by, at Middlebury, they would have on Saturdays, the hockey game and the basketball game at the same time, and they would time it so that our last 10 minutes were during the break between periods 2 and 3 for hockey, and the whole crowd would come in to get warm, and they would clap for us while we would, put the game away. So you asked me to elaborate. Now, here it goes. We're out on the floor for the warm-ups, and the Bates team came out, and everyone's clapping and going. I was really impressed by how many people were in the stands already. Maybe 300, more than that. And then the warm-up music starts, and it is, oh, oh. Now, all the veterans listening to this one know that that's the beginning overture to Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas. So we're like, Kung Fu Fighting is the warm-up music? And it was. The song starts, and up from the steps comes flying out onto the floor a guy in a complete karate gi all dressed up, and he starts dancing a karate dance to Kung Fu Fighting, and the crowd stood up and they were all dancing with him, and we were mesmerized. We were just fascinated, and he was really, really good. It happened to be well-known personality, a person who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, John Jenkins. And John Jenkins was doing the Kung Fu dance as for the warm-up. And and the whole crowd was dancing along, as I said, and we just couldn't believe it, So I and others on the team, we really weren't warming up. We were just kind of like looking, and and it was so energizing, and it was such a good time. The NBA does all of this loud stuff before the games these days, and I call it loud stuff. This was really well orchestrated, and so Bates was ahead of the curve as usual in terms of having great pregame activities and music and so quite honestly, the game started. It was the best first half I've ever seen, and like both teams are just so excited to play, and we actually ended up with a 5-point lead at the end of the first half, and we went down to the locker room and we were all talking to each other. It's like, man, can you believe this atmosphere? That guy was unbelievable. This was great, and I don't know what the coach said, if anything, but we went back up and we got lucky. We scored the first 10 points in the second half and kind of went off to a smooth victory. But it was an incredible environment. And after the game, the Bates team came into our locker room and they said, "Wow, we haven't seen a team this good all year." The week before, Bates had beaten Brandeis 109 and 108 in overtime here. And I said, "How about Brandeis?" I said, "You guys are better than them." And we were like, and then we said the important question: who is that guy? Right. So that was a great initial memory experience at Bates.
Yeah, and John Jenkins, of course, was truly a martial arts master, and he went on to be the mayor of Lewiston and Auburn at different times. And so certainly, did you get to know him maybe after you arrived at Bates?
Man, I'm smiling so much. About 3 years after I was here,
yeah.
John interviews for a housing position.
Right.
He gets the housing position. After the interview, and I met John a few times, I went to him. I said, John, that thing you did before the Bates games, that was incredible. And he looks at me and he says, "What are you talking about?" So I was amazed. I said, the Kung Fu dance, the Carl Douglas Kung Fu Fighting. He looks down at the ground. He looks up. He says to me, "You were here for that?" And I smartly thought about it and I said, "What? You only did it once?" He goes, "Yeah. I was at dinner that night and the song was number 1 in the country at the time."
Okay, yeah.
And they said, "Hey, we got to do this dance, we're going to get some money together." So they collected like $50, to, have him go out on the floor and do it, and he said, it's good money in those days. And he said, "I thought it went pretty well." But they came to me for the next game and said, "Well, we lost the game, so we're not going to do it again." So I regret that our team was responsible for the greatest pregame exercise I've ever seen or experienced. And so, yeah, we worked together in the office. It's funny. I can't even pinpoint the 2 years. We had so much fun every day because he's an incredible wit, very humorous and energetic, and it was super 2 years. And then after that, I continued to get to know him as he went off to his political exploits and fame as such, when they named the bridge between the two towns, Lewiston and Auburn, the footbridge after him last year. I was very touched and worked with a group of people to put together a service for him. But that's a real appropriate kind of monument literally to John and all he was and continues to be.
Yeah, certainly. And then, so after you come to Bates, your main job is supporting international students, but also, of course, you've been at the scorers table for basketball games for many years now. How did that first come about, and how has your role kind of changed? Because we talked off air, there's been some rule changes since you started.
Yeah. It's interesting each year at the first game. The refs come over to the table and say, any changes this year? And I keep up with these pretty well. Yeah. Well, somewhere in the early, mid-'80s, Bob Hatch was the athletic director, and I love the line. He said, well, we had one person retire, and so we thought about it, and he said, you know so much about the game. We thought we'd ask you if you could run the clock and keep the score. So I said, oh, yes, I'm honored, and so I started out and then enjoyed it, from that moment on. It was a volunteer position, and I was happy to do that. And as the years have gone by, in terms of, work, equity, and ethics and the whole bit, they, pay us for our duties at the table and whole bit, and so I thought about it, many years ago, and I said, I cannot believe this. I get paid to watch basketball. And I have told people that if I was a really good person, I would take that money and give it to some nice cause or charity, But I should, keep the money. So it's been wonderful at the table. And yes, there've been some changes. 3-point line, the shot clock, and I'll say this now rather than a little bit later. I enjoy the shot clock. I can watch the game and do the clock in terms of the rules, quite easily. I find that in these days with keeping fouls and everything else on the board with the scoreboard is, looking up and down a lot more. And so it's a little bit more tedious. But the shot clock, I can just watch, some entertainment. Sometimes I'll switch from my right hand to my left hand and see if, just keep the edge. But this year, and I had heard it a few times in some milder forms. But this year, a referee came in, and oftentimes referees come up to me and say, "Well, thanks. You did a great job on that play. You didn't, reset at the wrong time and the whole bit." A referee came in this year, and he came up to the table and he said, "This is my first time at the Bates Gym, and I have to tell you, people out there are telling me that you are the best shot clock person in New England." Wow. I was like, "Well, thanks a lot." And I smiled, And I said, "Well, I hope I don't make a mistake in the first 5 minutes, But things went well. So, but, it's a very serious, role. And watching television, I can pick out the shot clock, errors with a smile on my face. And my family and I, we kind of laugh about that. But, no, it's been good. And so I get to enjoy the game and contribute to a very important aspect of, of the play, keeping that time correctly. Very important to the teams and even more important to the refs. and I enjoy it.
Excellent. And I know for years at the scorers table, you worked alongside Lee Campbell and Dick Wagner, some legends here at Bates. Tell me some memories you have of them.
Yeah. Lee Campbell, my first day at Bates. There's a little bit of a tradition. A lot of departments, you take someone on their first day out to lunch, and we, go to lunch. We went to the den. So Lee Campbell comes and along with a couple other people on my first day at Bates and said, "We'd like to take you to lunch." And, I was very appreciative. And he said, I don't know if you remember me at all. I do the book for the basketball team, and I know of you. You might not know of me. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember you." And but it was a wonderful lunch where we were taught basketball mainly. They did ask me at the end of the hour, did I like baseball? And I said, "Oh, yes, I did," And then I kind of cautiously started looking around the room, and they said, "So who do you like?" I said, "Well, I am a New York Yankees fan, lifelong." And there was silence at the table. And I can get away with this joke. And I said, "Well, I guess, we really did need to have a minority point of view here, So, but Lee, a gentleman dedicated to Bates, dedicated to the players, all the students here, director of financial aid. So many people talk to me then and now about, because of him, their time at Bates was made and sustained by his work. And he was so modest, he would never take credit for anything. And he loved Mainers, but he loved all students. And so that was him in terms of an administrator at Bates. And then as far as basketball, every ref and every coach, who had been around for a while knew of Lee. He would do his work here at Bates with basketball during the February vacation. He would be the primary scorekeeper at the Maine State High School basketball playoffs. He actually invited me in my early years to go up and catch those games. I fell in love with the arena in New Jersey. You play playoff games, in your building, and there's not a lot of comment about it. Here in Maine, towns empty out to go and follow their high school team, and it was a great piece of Americana, and I enjoyed that. So he introduced me to that, and I also loved how, and it was because of his leadership, along with Dick Wagner, who did the clock for a long time, and I would do the shot clock. Many refs would come over and say, "Best table in Maine, best table in Maine," and we were proud of that, and glad to mention it here, but we didn't have shirts on saying best table in Maine. We could have. So, Lee was very special from that beginning day, to have him, be so genuine and inviting and come forth and invite me to be a part of the community and then to work together with him in those ways, it was very special to me.
Excellent. And then Dick Wagner, a little bit more about him, perhaps?
Yeah, Dick. Dick's not cantankerous, but he's he was the emotion of the table, and so he could, yell at a ref, mildly, as they run by, and then I say, "You got to put the points up, Dick," and oh yeah, and like that, and I'm getting to it in a whole bit, and but very dedicated, to his task. And could carry on. He would be the leader of the conversation that would be going on. A lot of witticisms and a few complaints, and but all genuine. And so I always look forward to arriving, at the table to work with Dick and of course with Lee. But Dick was the energy, So and then when he comes into games now, he always has something to say, and his as a professor. Let's see, he did a course in group dynamics, all right? And it was really one of the most popular courses at the school where people, as a psychology professor, and just sit in a circle and kind of talk about how, groups, form and manifest themselves. And, and a lot of students would say to me, even now, that in terms of a course that we all have, that we use the most, in our real life, so many people who are psychology majors said that was the course, Dick Wagner's course.
Excellent. And then it might be hard, but through all your years working the table, what's maybe one of the most memorable or the most memorable Bates basketball moment that you even from today you still remember, maybe from the early years or even more recent perhaps?
Well, I give two. The short one is we were playing Clark University, and they were they might have been number 1 or number 2 in the nation that week. And the year before, they had won the D3 National Championship. All right. So this is not going to be a story that we won the game. We did not.
Okay.
We did not. So they had a guard on the team, and he had just transferred in that year from Cleveland State, a team that had beaten Bobby Knight in Indiana in the playoffs, And so he transferred to Clark, he was from New England, and he became a starter on top of the All-American guard who had led them to the, and so this team was loaded. Yeah. So the game starts, and he comes down the floor and he shoots a three. This is kind of in the early days of the three-pointer, right? So he fires off a three and swishes it, We go up the floor, we miss a shot. He comes down the floor, he's 4 steps over half court. He launches the ball. He swishes it again. And then, the third time down, he looks like he's going to pull up for a three. He goes around and just puts in one of the most smoothest layups, over the rim. He was about 5'11", almost dunked it. All right. Well, it's 8-0. We call timeout. Really, a minute had gone off the clock. So we go back out, and our player has the ball inside, and he gets fouled, and our player kind of gives an extra shove and then a shove back, so a little bit of, ruckus starts up. So the refs got it all situated, but they come over to talk about it, and they actually give a double technical and all that. So this new guard for Clark says right in front of the table, he said, "I can't believe this. I'm going to score 50 tonight." In that voice. He didn't score 50. He scored 44. It was the most amazing exhibition I've seen in that gym. And wow, it was threes and twos and layups. It was unbelievable. But the next one is a little bit longer story. It's the Colby Mule mascot. 91. And I'm embarrassed to say, I always say this. It was a season that started, and I would go to all the games, Bates versus Colby at Colby, Bates versus Bowdoin at Bowdoin. So we were playing Colby kind of midway through the season for the first time, in that year's schedule. And so we were going to play twice, and so it was in January. And we were kind of 500 record at the time. Colby was undefeated. And so you would think I would go to the game, see, great team this is. But something was going on, and I made an excuse, and I didn't go up to the game. And I learned my first year that all the games with Colby and Bowdoin tend to be close. So long story short on that, we go to Colby. They're undefeated. Bates wins. All right. Wow. Great. So Colby has one loss all the way through the season until the final game when they're coming to Bates for the second game. And so the place is packed, because we've heard that Colby's going to try to enact revenge because they have the one loss. And very interestingly, this is in the years just prior to NESCAC teams being able to go to the NCAA playoffs. Mm-hmm. So this was everything. Yeah. So we still have a 500 record, and I think we're 12-12, 11-11. And then Colby comes in with a 23-1 record, let's say. And there were so many people there that for the 7:30 game, we had to close the doors at 7 o'clock, and people had to watch on closed-circuit TV around the campus. Colby had brought 200 fans, and so the whole side of the gym was full of their fans. All right. And the Colby Mule is there, the mascot. So the Colby Mule is going around, heckling our fans and all that. And wow, I can't repeat what our fans were saying back to the Colby Mule, but, you can imagine. And it's pretty intense, So finally the game starts, that time at 7:30. And tie score 6-6, and then Colby runs off a string of 8 points, so they're up 14-6, and they call a timeout. All right. Well, as is true now, we have the gentleman who goes out and spells Bates with his body to the crowd, and we've always had that at Bates. So in those days it was students. Well, the Colby Mule decides to come out onto our floor and turn to their fans, as numerous as they were, and spell Colby right in front of us during the timeout. And it's the loudest booing I've ever heard in the gym. All right. And spells twice is the tradition, And then our fans were just outraged. And then the Colby Mule reaches up, takes his hand and snatches off one ear, snatches off the other ear, takes the head off his head, throws it to the side, and rips open the front of the costume and looks at the Colby crowd and says, "Aha, I got you." It was a Bates grad underneath who had bought a Colby Mule mascot uniform or whatever and had done this. And he said, "I got you." He turns around to the Bates crowd and spells Bates, B-A-T-E-S, the loudest I've ever heard it. And yes, that is the moment I talk about. And I've just got a front row seat to this. And yeah, that was a great moment.
Well, I need to name that alum. I wonder who that was.
Gosh, it's embarrassing. I'm so excited. His name, I'm going to shout it out in a second. He's actually on our alumni council now,
okay.
So that helps.
Okay.
And he had just graduated, and he got there, and his sister was going to Colby. She was at the game. and so I tell everyone how our crowd was so energized and all that, but the Colby team was a little bit incensed, so they played really well. We lost the game actually by 20, but nobody cared.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. So, I mean, you've been at Bates since '77. What about Bates has made you, want to be here for your entire career?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it was a 2-year appointment, and like the friend who had that, and so the answer is after 2 years, Dean Kerrigan, a man who I just think the world of. He's very accommodating on me of, my abilities and, great advice and mentoring. And he called me in and said, hey, would you like to stay a third year? I said, absolutely. And so we kind of he asked me that question for 4 more years, I guess. And year number 7, he said, you know what? I want you to stay. Just let me know when you want to leave, So the answer to your question is that, there's a community here based upon, I think, the origins of the school, no fraternities, no sororities. It kind of informs the place. All the organizations are open, as we all know. And so there's an interaction here that works. I think people arrive at Bates, looking to interact and engage with people, to be be a part of large whole, WHOLE, and that whole community approach works for me. I was doing housing when I first came. I did international students. I did a portion of the residential life. Actually, in my 3rd year, and I'm bragging a little bit, I did those things and also campus student activities, which is now campus life. And so here I was mixed in with the, integrally with the whole student body. I almost knew everyone. It was a little bit smaller in population. When you do housing, you recognize every name and the whole bit. And so it was all working for me. So I was able to have great influence on, yes, the social scene, and then, in terms of social life, and then in terms of the life, in terms of speakers coming to campus and the whole bit, and the calendar and all that, there I was, with my hands fully involved with it. So this level of responsibility and engagement is something I hope to be able to do, in my career. And I was doing it at a young age and with a license to be free and to go about it all from this great mentor, Dean Kerrigan. And then I worked with some other people in my office who were very wonderful. One of them was so Dean Kerrigan was the dean, and then another person, F. Celeste Branham, became the dean of students a few years later. When the 3 of us were working together, it was just a very cohesive unit, and we made all kinds of great decisions and the whole bit. So it was, I was doing what I wanted to do, so why leave and go somewhere else and have to start that over? Then, you meet all the students here, and I got a new moniker for Bates, which is, the most talented in NESCAC. The talent on this campus is just remarkable. Far beyond the wonderful, incredible a cappella groups. We have all this talent, and well how it works, and we can even work harder to maximize that. So to be in that community, especially when I was doing the whole student activities part, gave me the opportunity to kind of talk to people and say, hey, you can do this, let's do this, and lots of wonder. So life every day was just kind of be a connection of wonderful things going on, whether wonderful conversations and just an enjoyable, life. I lived on the campus before I was married, and my wife, she was, more than fine to live on the campus, and with our children, they've grown up on the campus, and there was, my daughter was a little bit afraid of the big Bobcat, when she was a kid, but, it's cute. But more important is that kind of engagement with all the students and their attention to my children and my family been wonderful. So all those things mixed together to have sustained me easily over these many years.
And it's a small world because Clayton Spencer is obviously stepping down as president. Gary Jenkins is coming in. But Clayton Spencer and you went to middle school together.
That is correct.
When she was appointed, did you remember her from middle school?
Well, people ask me that question often.
Yeah.
Did I remember her or did she remember me? Yeah. And the answer is, it's the same answer every time. Clayton Spencer and I talked this close every day for 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade. We were in the same classes, virtual, all the same classes those 3 years. And yes, I knew her quite well. So, who knew, right? Interestingly, after 10th grade, My family, so this middle school was in North Carolina, and my family moved from North Carolina to South Jersey after my 10th grade year. And I didn't know this until her inauguration at Bates, that she had left that 10th grade school in North Carolina and gone to Phillips Exeter for, actually at that time, the first year where men and women went to school together at that independent school. So the point is that many years went, and I kind of, what's up with Clayton Spencer? Now in the 8th and 9th and 10th grade, she was the number one student in the school, all right? And all the rest of us got used to coming in number 2. You never asked, however well you did on a test. You just say, how'd you do? You came in second, You always knew she came in first. So, after 35 years, I Googled her, imagine, and had a nice warm exchange with her after I noticed that she was vice president at Harvard. So my first email to her, I said, "Oh, Clayton, James Reese," Actually, the subject line was "old friend." Yeah. So I wasn't like, "Oh, I don't know if you remember me." It wasn't that. I was like, "Old friend." And so you're vice president at Harvard? No surprise, I said. And actually, quite honestly, that first email included, because I had mentioned that my wife was from Sri Lanka, and we traveled there each summer. And she said, "Well, if you're flying out of Boston and you want to park your car in my driveway while you're in Sri Lanka, just let me know." That was the first exchange after 35 years.
Excellent. And then, to the point of President Bates, it's like, what was kind of your reaction? Were you part of that process?
I wasn't part of the process because, there's silent processes and all.
Sure.
After we had made that connection, she had mentioned knowing Peter Gomes, mm-hmm. and when Peter Gomes passed, I'd heard she might come up to the ceremony here, and she didn't happen to come up. And I think at that time it coincided with kind of how the process was starting up, and candidates have to kind of they have to abide by secrecy and a whole bit, So here it is, okay, and you're gonna love this. So it was a secret process, right? And I didn't have an inclination it was Clayton might be. I didn't know who the new president was. None of us did. So it was the committee announced that year that there would be an announcement on a December Sunday. So everyone is to show up at the Gray Cage at 2:00 on that Sunday. All right. We knew this a few days before. So on the Saturday before that announcement, I was in a birthday party with my children and a bunch of other children and some other faculty and staff. So somebody said, "Hey, does anyone have heard any rumors about the new president?" That kind of chit chat. And so one person goes, "I've heard that it's a woman of color who is not in academia." So I was like, wow, okay. So the next morning, I get a phone call from the interim president, and she says, "James, for the new president, I think it would be appropriate if you were at the dinner tonight, for the new president." So he said, "Will you be willing to come?" So I said, "Yes, I will." So I get off the phone, I go to my wife, and I said, "They just invited me to dinner, I'll be blunt, I said, maybe it's a person of color or it's somebody I know, all right? And so then in that moment, I thought, I wasn't thinking it was somebody I knew, and if it was going to be yes, it could be Clayton. I knew a few other people might be qualified. But I jokingly said, if it's a woman of color, now I have figured it out. Our next president at Bates is going to be Oprah Winfrey. And so everyone has some humor. And so then the announcement was at 2:00, and I was standing beside one of my colleagues, and they said, "Oh, our new president is a graduate of Williams and is majored in history and in German." So I turned to my colleague and said, "I know her. There's a person called Clayton Spencer, It's Clayton Spencer, And then everyone's like, "Did you really know her?" "Yeah, does she know you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Come up with me afterwards, So in that initial occasion, I waited a few minutes. I had my colleague and my family beside me, and we went up to say hello. I knew Clayton would remember me, but I put my children up front anyway because, they were kind of like, what were they, 10 and 8 or something like that, or a little 8 and 6. And so then she says hello to the children, and she looks up and goes, James! And so that proved to my colleague that she knew me. Not only the expression, but she called me James because I've always been James rather than Jim. And so that was wonderful. It just an amazing fact that after all this time of me being here and staying here, and her incredible career, that we'd be on the same campus. I have joked to people, and people should take this as a motto in life. Be kind to people in 8th grade.
There you go. That's a great way to finish the episode. Dean James Reese, thanks so much for joining us on the 300th episode of the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be part of the 300th, and thank you for all you do, Aaron.
The Bates baseball team hosts Thomas College this Thursday at 3:30, and they host the Colby College Mules for a big NASCAC doubleheader this Saturday starting at noon. Meanwhile, the softball team hosts Bowdoin for a pair of games Friday at 3 o'clock. Men's lacrosse is home as well against Hamilton for Senior Day, Saturday at 1 p.m. Find the complete schedule of events at GoBatesBobcats.com, and we'll catch you next time on the Bates Bobcast.